didn't say anything. They got an opinion from a passing resident doctor that had been there, like, it looks like 100 years. And he said, hey, there's a lesser invasive that you can do. You can kind of turn his leg, so to speak, and put the plate in, and his leg might be crooked. It might not ever work, but hey, listen, you can give it a shot. So they did it. And, fast forward, I hobbled into the chief's office with my crutches, and the most painful day of my life by far. Worse than the accident, worse than the divorce, worse than I had to slide my badge across the table. And wow. It was my passion. I mean, you talk about a guy who on duty trained as much as I could, shoot every time they let me go to the academy. Off duty, I'm shooting. Off duty, I'm taking my own tactical courses. Off duty, I'm doing executive protection for the movie industry.
That's interesting because me and John were talking about before the podcast how I think that the answer for the defund the police is give them more funding and allocate that funding into training.
More training. Yeah, for sure.
It's a good point, and there are specialized units, and I've been in several where you can tell them, hey, listen, I've got the big course out here, Surefire Institute, Thunder Ranch, Front Sight, things like that. And I say, hey, I want to go to Thunder Ranch, and here's the cost and here's the tuition, and they do have some funds where they can pay for it, do it, but that's on an individual basis. Your patrol officer can't really do that. You can't really apply for training, so to speak. It's mandated. Now, peace officers standardization and training for the state of California states that you have to train X, Y, and Z. And as a training coordinator, I had to schedule all that and make sure that everybody stayed qualified and did all their work. But it's still not enough. But you're posed with the question of who covers the beat, so to speak, when all these people are training. That's a challenge in itself. So, what my solution was, I wanted to be proficient in what I did. I worked in an extremely dangerous place in an extremely dangerous era.
For
I think
sure, man.
2001, I have a shirt of it, which we're not supposed to have, but I have a shirt of it in 2001. There was 116 homicides in my division.
Wow.
That's staggering. And I remember going to probably a lot of them. I remember 5 or 6 homicide scenes in a night one time. So
that's
in our division.
So crazy.
So,
It's crazy because then you have Shane living out here, Utah, Spanish Fork, Utah, which is like a rodeo. They have like a national rodeo, stadium down there. And it's not like that at all.
Rage Against the Machine actually performed that, so
they did. They did at that rodeo.
Claim to fame of that stadium.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, you know what? What's funny is full circle. I'd kill to be doing what you're doing. I'm looking into moving right now, so I envy you, my brother.
Small town life is actually awesome.
So I agree with you guys in the training. It's just how do you do it? And those are a lot of motivated police officers that want to be safe and be more trained. They do the tolerance training and the touchy-feely training, and it's great. But the reality is people are people.
Yeah.
And I think that if I can be so bold to say, I think with respect to what's going on now, I think the public needs better training.
Sure. Yeah, that's true too. More training for everyone would definitely be the path to go, but you can't really enforce that on civilians and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, you can't. But all you can do is awareness. You do awareness for everything now. I mean, you can do awareness for things like, how about procedures? Make people aware of when police do stop you. This is kind of the way it should go in a perfect world. And if it does, this should be the outcome. If this is not the outcome, these are your choices for which refute, and given the legal correct way to go about things. And hey, if you weren't treated well by an officer, then maybe some oversight. I mean, we're always talking about oversight. Maybe there's somewhere they can call to say, listen, got to treat me exactly right or whatever. I mean, they do that, and LAPD and those policy is they take a complaint from anyone. He could be a second strike parolee, and they will take the complaint and they will record the statement. So they take it very seriously.
Yeah.
But these are things the public, of course, doesn't know and doesn't want to know.
And it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback in that situation.
Yeah, and you guys well know that there's vocations out there that if you haven't done it and you haven't walked a mile in their shoes, so to speak, then I'm telling you, you don't really have the right to be an expert on it and give opinions on how it should be done.
Exactly.
That's where I with it anyway.
Yeah,
agree.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had a crazy life, and you guys are starting to get a little bit of taste of it.
So do you think your leg injury pushed you into wanting to be a personal trainer because you could work with people and work through their problems, or did that come later?
That's a really good question. No, but what it did is it amplified it by 100-fold.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
One, I've been a trainer. I think I was 19 and a half or something. I got certified. It was a thing I was going to do instead of the military, and then I went in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But while in the military, I trained partners. I had lifting partners. I was always that way. And anybody that didn't know anything about fitness or things, I would take the time to work with them. I enjoyed it from the start. So I've been doing it since I was 19 and a half, 49 now. So that gives you know, got going on for years.
Awesome.
But I start probably like you, John. I starve for information. You know, I did read about your education. I'm highly impressed.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Not a lot of trainers have that depth of education behind them, and it's a shame because you're messing with people's bodies and livelihood. But
right.
You know, and I see some scary things. But to your question, what it did give me is insight that you could not get, and an education you cannot get for all the money in the world.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Throughout my injuries, I learned extremely well how to work with various injuries because I've had most, if not all of them. I mean, in fact, I had arm surgery 5 weeks ago. I'm looking at the scar on my arm right now.
I looked through your Instagram.
We're looking at those pictures.
That's gnarly.
So, you know, I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. But at any rate, so once I recovered from this injury that I was never supposed to walk again, I mean, I got up to squatting 400 pounds, and I was only weighing about 190.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I'm super happy about that. And the reality was people started seeing me, and I started posting pictures. And the only reason I post progress pictures is because it's self-accountability for me, unlike my social media. It's self-accountability for me. You may see something, oh, this guy wants to show off, you know, these lost weight or he's got more muscular. No. I want to see what I need to work on next.
Sure.
I want to put myself out there. And I've got some pictures of my Instagram that are fluffy. I got some that are injured, and I've got some that are, you know, competition level. And it's an inner thing. Second thing it does that I didn't even realize, it's as a beacon to other people to say, man, this guy's gone to zero and back how many times?
Yeah.
And now he's 49 years old, almost 50 years old. And, you know, coming from an arm surgery, 5 weeks post-surgery, I'm pressing 225 for 4 reps on the decline because of sheer iron will. I'm going to throw it out there.
Yep.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
Iron will. And what a funny thing, iron will with the weights. But what that gave me is tremendous insight to help tell somebody. And I'll tell anybody listening to this podcast, I'd love to send this message out, and I'm sure John will agree. No one knows your body better than you do.
Right.
Doctors do not want you to work out. It's a liability. Of course, if they tell you to work out and you break something, they can be liable.
Yeah.
So you have to go against the grain. My doctor told me I have a rare attribute that says that my bones heal like superhero level. I didn't know that. So I said, hey, if you say I can work out in a month, that means I can work out now. If you say that I can go heavy in 2 months, I can go heavy in 2 weeks. And what I do is I listen to my body, and we can all hear it. Some just don't listen.
Did he just tell us that he's Wolverine? That's awesome.
Oh, man, I wish.
Yeah.
So if you listen to your body and it speaks loudly, obviously just do weight training or resistance training. Cardio and flexibility is fantastic, but in and of itself is not going to get you in shape. John and I know that the number one way to burn fat on this Mother Earth is resistance training.
Sure.
Secondly, you build lean muscle. When you have lean muscle, it burns fat while you're sitting there at your desk at work. So those are huge attributes. And thirdly, the most important thing, and this is my cornerstone of injury progression, is strengthen the muscle around the injury. So A, it takes the further beating of life and protects the injury. And B, it lets the injury relax and actually heal.
Sure.
You'll actually heal at a more rapid rate doing resistance training than you will sitting at home hoping you're resting it, if that makes sense.
Right. You do. You have to signal that muscle to do what it needs to do.
Yes,
in my situation, the atrophy starts immediately. As soon as I don't lift for a day even, I can notice the atrophy setting in.
Yeah, Shane's got to be consistent,
right.
like all the time.
Yep.
We just had him work out just barely right before we got on the podcast.
Yep.
So do you do all Shane's PT, John?
We've done some. He goes to another place as well. Mine's more of a functional, like trying to get him to be adding more functional movements into his routine instead of specific physical therapy. But
you got to shock the muscle, right?
You do. You totally do. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we've had to really get creative with some of his exercises. Not
only on how we connect my hand to what I'm pulling on, but in multiple different ways.
Sure.
I have a huge interest in that stuff, and I'd call back one day and do a podcast where I ask you guys all the questions about this because I find it tremendously interesting. But what you say, Warner, about the atrophy is, especially when you get older, you're not as tight as you used to be. And it was Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, I follow, her husband's a Navy SEAL. She said it best. When you age, your muscle, instead of being thick, nice red meat, becomes like marbleized. Yeah. And it's less muscle as time goes on. That was the best explanation I ever heard, because that's why, my forearms used to be like steel several years ago, and now they're a little squishier. And no matter how much you lift, how much you grip, how much you do, that's the case. So when you get injured, that atrophy is like, my right arm was like jello. I mean, it was just squishy, and atrophy is just literally where the muscle goes to sleep for a while and says, I don't really want to exist. And so you got to wake it up, and you've got to wake it up several ways. And John, tell me if you disagree, but functional stretching. I've been using the Theragun or, on kind of, and breaking up some scar tissue so that it can come back.
Right.
But I've been trying to target denser, deeper muscle tissue to get the atrophy to go away quicker. So honestly, that just means very, 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 very hard grip. Like, I'll grip everything as tight as possible when I work out.
Yeah.
And I try to do heavy weights on angles that do not hurt the wound, such as bench. I mean, because that's, my arm is literally in line with itself. So, versus
so you're
like
you're being intuitive too. Like, I mean, some people, they hear this and they're like, oh yeah, so I just need to get right back at it. But you're saying, like, you are listening to your body, making sure that you're not just putting it into a position where you're feeling all the sharp pains, but to the point where you can actually stimulate that muscle so it can start growing again and heal the actual injury.
Yeah, I like that word, intent or purposeful. There's nothing I do in the gym or otherwise that's not 100% intent. Like I said, it's all angles. It's just like tactics. You attack a building. That building can simply, and I don't care what unit in the world you're with, LAPD, SWAT, Dev Group, SFOD, whatever. It all comes down to angles. So same thing with a muscle with a gym. Hit the muscle at different angles, multiple angles. Hit the muscle at different depths, which would mean hypertrophy training, some strength training. Hit every piece of that muscle you can, but hit it in an angle that is conducive to the functionality of your body at that time. And me, I can't do curls and put direct weight, on that
makes
injury,
sense. Yeah,
but I can press and I can pull a tremendous amount of weight already. So what do? I go heavy in those. And I follow it up immediately with a lighter weight exercise, but then I go nuts, like 30, 35, 40 reps so that I can pump blood and oxygen into the muscle, which helps it heal.
Right. Exactly.
I go with the basics, to be honest with you. Very, very basic, but I focus very highly on what those basics are, and I never stray from them. If that makes sense.
I want to ask you, what is the most rewarding part about training people? If you see them improve, what's the most rewarding part about that experience for you?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'll bet it's going to be similar to you. That question in itself, to be honest with you, makes me smile. I've never known anything in my life but to serve in the military and police department and being a trainer. I've kind of lived my life for other people. So here's a couple of examples. A lady comes to me and says, hey, I've got a really bad back. I mean, I can't hold my grandkid. My back just burns. Like, I put him down. I can't walk up a flight of stairs. I can't play with my grandkids. And she kept mentioning grandkids. So, I asked her what her workout regime was, her fitness, and she does nothing. So what we did is we strengthened that muscle around the injury. I gave her some soft tissue massage and, try to break up whatever scar tissue you have that gives you, lacks your functionality or impedes the functionality. And the point being is this: she one day